Welcome to On the Bauble Podcast, episode 29. I'm your host, Sabasa J. Wada, and with me is my co-host, Yuki Lee Bender. Today we're going to be doing a Outsiders sealed review. This is going to be for the pre-release. We haven't played with the set yet as well, but we've been looking at the set quite extensively, and we want to give you our thoughts for sealed. This is not going to be... We won't be talking in detail about draft. That's probably going to come out after the set releases. But today we're going to be looking at how to prepare for your pre-release. But before we go into that, how was your week, Yuki?
My week's been pretty good. Spring break just started, so I have some time off. I went to Whistler to go skiing yesterday. It was pretty nice. There was quite a bit of fresh snow. And then on the weekend, I went to the Magic RC that I've been talking about. So again, that's sort of like I guess it's sort of like a small calling. I played the constructed format there, standard. I did pretty good at the end of day one. I was 5-1-2. I think I was like 23rd or 24th at the end of day one, and then I went 1-4 on day two. But I cashed, and honestly, like I played maybe 20 games of the format, so I can't really complain. How has your week been?
For myself, I was also at the RC. I didn't play the main event. I ended up playing just infinite side events. I played six drafts. I played six drafts. I played a bunch of last chance qualifiers for the main event, and then I conceded every round with the prize split like 3 times in the finals. So yeah, it was a good weekend for me too. Like I was playing blue black infect, and my best matchup is mono blue, and I played against like 7 mono blue players.
Gross. Yeah, I remember I went to LCQ, and so basically you can play the day before and play a last chance qualifier, and essentially if you can get to 3 wins, you get an invite to the like the calling, and you can register for it. So technically it's like invite only, but the invites are pretty easy to come by if you really want to and you play events, you should be able to get the invite, I would say.
If you can win.
If you can win. Yeah. But also like it's still Magic the Gathering, and your opponent can get unlucky. So I don't know. I think if you play enough, you will most likely get the invite.
Yes. And a lot of the times when you play these like last chance qualifiers, the people who are in it, some of them already has their invite, and they'll gladly accept like a prize split to, to give you the invite essentially.
Yeah, that's how I actually got my invite. I went on the Friday, I LCQ'd in, I played 2 rounds, I won those rounds, and then I prize split with my opponent in the finals. So it's like you just need to go 2-0. It's not that hard. There's also like qualifiers that I guess they're kind of like PQs, except a lot of them are if you top eight, you get an invite to the calling. So it's top eighting is much easier than having to win the event.
Yes, very true, very true. Do you want to move on?
Yeah, I think we can do that. We have a lot to talk about today, and honestly, I'm pretty excited about this set. After looking at it, I think it's going to be fun. It looks to me at first glance like it might be a little bit lower power level, certainly compared to Uprising. I think that the decks are just not going to be quite as powerful or able to go above curve quite as easily. And I think even compared to something like Tails, it might be a little bit weaker. What are your kind of like initial thoughts on this set?
My first impressions after looking at the set is 3 blocks are going to be hard to come by. So I feel like having like when we talked about before, we're looking for like minimum like 12 points a turn. You might be even looking for way less than that in this format. Maybe even like 10 might be enough in this format to get to be above rate essentially.
Yeah, I think if you can consistently make your cards worth 3 in this format, you're actually probably in a pretty good spot. Before we jump into things, I do have a couple of quick kind of just stats for you. The first one is that attack reactions, there's 3 cycles of these. So there's 2 in Assassin, there's the spikes, which are the +3 to stealth cards that cost 1, and they give either frailty, inertia, or blood rot pox on hit to the attack. So those are there. There's also the 0 cost +3 to a stealth attack in Assassin, and then there's one more that gives it's an Assassin Ninja attack reaction that gives +3 to either a dagger or a card that has base power 2 or less. So there are some attack reacts in this set, but it's limited mostly to Assassin, and Ninja does have the access to the 1, but I think it is the weaker of the bunch. I think the 2 Assassin specific attack reactions are stronger.
I feel like this means that obviously if you're playing the, I guess you want to talk about the defense reactions first before we move on.
Yeah, so in terms of D reacts, there's kind of two cycles of D reacts, of actual D reacts. So there's the Ranger ones, which is like the Pitfall Trap, Boulder Trap, etc. I think that these are pretty solid, just as yellow 3-block attack reactions. They work as a resource card. You can get a little bit of extra value out of them. And then in Assassin Ranger, there's also the red trap. So there's the Frailty, Inertia, and Blood Rot Trap, which will give you the token that's in their name if you meet a certain condition. And again, I think just being a 3-block that has potential upside is going to be pretty good. There's not as many sources of go again in this set, so I think that most classes are going to be wanting to do a little bit of blocking regardless, and so having some red D reacts that can be potentially worth 3+, I think is pretty good.
Yeah, as I was gonna say, because there are so many attack reactions in Assassin and Ninja. If you're playing against those classes, you really can't go down health too early, or if you go down to like maybe like 3 or 4 health, that's gonna be within like what I would call just like an unblockable range where you will just lose the game. Even if you have like 3 cards in your hand, you might just lose if you don't have a defense reaction. So I think in this format, what will be very important to just know or to note would be make sure you have high enough life total so that when your opponent plays a card and it's basically unblockable, you don't immediately blow up or immediately lose when you could have just blocked out for 2 more, or even like even if it's a block for 1, it might be worth it, even if it doesn't feel like it's on rate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people are going to be getting got by these attack reactions, especially early on. There's just not very many tools to deal with them. I guess in addition to the D reacts, which are class specific, and I think they're all rares. There's also a couple generic instants that prevent damage. There's Peace of Mind, which is is Peace of Mind the 2 cost?
Yeah, peace of mind is 2 cost.
Yeah, Peace of Mind's a 2 cost, and at red it stops the next 4 attack damage. It only works from a specific attack though, and you create a Ponder token as well. I think this card is going to be a little bit awkward to use. It might be okay if you're a ranger and you can get a bow load out of it, but the 2 cost to block for is pretty expensive, and the Ponder token's okay, but again, you need to be kind of a class that doesn't mind having just a random card in your arsenal, because you can only the ponder draws you a card at the end of turn, so you have to arsenal that card to get value out of it, and I don't think every deck in this format necessarily wants to arsenal all their cards.
Yeah, mostly blues. Like obviously most of the reds are okay to have Arsenal, but if there's like a random blue that's gonna be hard to play, it's gonna be quite awkward if you need to Arsenal that.
Yeah, and the other instant that's sort of like a D react is brush off. At red, it prevents the next 3 damage that would be dealt this turn, and it's just a 0 cost instant. So this is basically a card that only blocks 3. Notably, it does get around dominate, and it doesn't care, like it doesn't get debuffed by the spider's bites from assassins. So I think that specifically against assassin and Azalea, this might be a decent card. Maybe even Benji, like Benji has some unblockable damage, and just being able to brush off and block it for 3 might be pretty okay.
Yeah, this one's a little awkward. I feel maybe it might be good, maybe it might be bad. It'll be hard to tell until we start playing it, but for sure it is a sideboard option. So when you do open a red one, just make a mental note of it. So when you are going into your games at hero reveal, you build your deck or you put together your deck. So just make sure if you have a red brush off, and when you're up against Benji, Azalea. I don't even know if you want it against Assassin, but maybe. Just have a note that you have this in your in your sealed pool.
Yeah. I kind of think it's going to be good against Assassin. They do have some on hits. The spider's bites is going to be annoying to block if they're using those spider's bites, and I think it's okay. Like I don't think this is like an amazing card, but I think it is playable, especially in sealed.
That's fair. Speaking of three blocks, the only three block in this set that is at common, at generic, is Come to Fight. So just keep in mind that Come to Fight is going to be a good card in this set because of that. The red one. So Come to Fight is the generic action that pumps your attack for three at red, and yeah, it blocks for three. So just treat it as like a defense reaction in the set, and I feel like you'll be good. The blue one's gonna be good. The red one's gonna be good. Yellow one maybe, depending on if you need yellow pitchers or not, but still blocks for three.
The final thing I kind of want to talk about in terms of just like things to be aware of in the set, maybe we'll frame it this way. Jay, how do you think the classes compare in terms of their ability to block? Do you think that they're all equal? Do you think there's certain classes that block better than others? I have some stats about this, but I'm curious about your first impressions.
I didn't look at any of the stats so far. From my first initial impressions, I feel like Ranger is going to be the most defensive or have the best capability to block, followed by Assassins and then Ninja. Because Ninja Assassin shares a pool and those cards block for two, I feel like it's gonna be in that order essentially.
Yeah, you're more or less right. So starting from the top, I guess, Ranger has 10 cycles of cards that block three. I'm counting like the traps that all come in yellow as one cycle of cards because I think that's how they're going to work. But they basically have 10 cycles of cards that block three and 5 cycles of cards that block two and an average block value of 2.67, which is the highest in the set. Assassin has 10 3 blocks as well, and then 8 2 blocks. Notably, Assassin's card pool is the biggest with like 18 different cycles of cards compared to 15 for Ranger and Ninja. That's because they have the dual class with both. There's like Assassin Ranger and Assassin Ninja. They have both the dual class, so they have a little bit bigger card pool. And their average block value is 2.56, so slightly lower than Ranger, but actually the same number of total 3 blocks that they have access to. So I think that Assassin and Ranger are going to block similarly, actually. And I think my gut says that Assassin might actually be the better blocking class just because a lot of those Ranger 3 blocks are arrows. And while they can block with them, like Ranger always has this, like, you can't block with all your arrows or you just don't have attacks kind of problem. So I think that even though Ranger has higher block values, Assassin might be a little bit more equipped
To block out?
yeah. And then finally, I think the most interesting one maybe is Ninja. Ninja has 4 cycles of cards that block three. This is again not counting the generics at all. And then they have 11 cycles of cards that block two, and an average block value of 2.27. So I think that Ninja's really not going to block very well at all. And I think that like while you could play like a mid-range Katsu that blocked really well and Welcome to Wraith off of Flick Flack and Sink Belows and Unmovables, I don't think you're going to be able to do that here. There's just not enough 3 blocks, and if you have the pool to do it, you'll know that you have the pool to do it. But I just don't think it's going to be coming together. Even in draft, I think you're going to really have a hard time getting enough 3 blocks. So I think you're going to have to be playing pretty aggressively as ninjas.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. These are also including counting rares as well, right?
Yeah, this is counting rares as well. So
Yeah, two of the cycles are that blocks for three are in rare, so
yeah, so it's even worse for ninja. Okay. You want to move on to generics?
yeah, let's move on to the generic equipment first. Let's talk about the equipments. First off, let's talk about the Seeker Cycle. So the Seeker Cycle is a generic equipment slot. We have a head, chest, arrow. Head, chest, arms, and legs, and they all have the same ability. It has instant pay one. You destroy the equipment, and it will prevent the next one damage that'll be dealt to you, and then you opt one. How do you think this is gonna play out?
I think they're not great, but they do stop breakpoints. They do also work against attack reacts, and I think that they definitely get better in multiples. Like if you can pitch a blue and use 3 of these to block, it's more efficient. Or if you're a ranger and you can use barbed castaway as an instant to load an arrow to make sure you're using all your resources, they get a little bit better. But I think in general these are not super strong. Ranger is probably the best home, especially Azalea. You can, because you have the Barb Castaway as an outlet, you can use Opt 1 to get a little bit of extra value and everything. But I think overall, these Seekers are like, you'll play them if you have them, but they're not. I think they're decently weaker than even like the Quelling equipment in Uprising.
Yeah, I think I agree. I have a feeling that you either maybe want three or maybe none, right? Like it's gonna be super awkward to use this.
Yeah, it's just really hard to ever translate this into like into a point of value.
The one spot where it is good, this might even just be like a sideboard thing. You do want this against exactly Riptide. You might just want one against Riptide, where if you have the floating resource and they play a D react, when they do the one damage, you can do this on your own turn, which will probably be like honestly the best spot to use it when it's your own turn and you can actually use your resources.
Yeah, that's a great point. I could see this being much better against Riptide. Okay, next, we have Threadbare Tunic. This is a chest, generic, and it has an ability instant, destroy it, gain a resource, activate only if you have no cards in hand. I think that this is okay. You can translate this into either a dagger attack, like maybe a Kodachi, or maybe like a second Spider's Bite at the end of a chain, although that seems harder to pull off because I don't know how you're getting. A lot of the assassin stuff doesn't have go again, so I don't know how you're playing attack and then getting an extra resource
Yeah,
to.
I think the only play pattern is like you pitch a blue Spider's Bite, activate Tunic, Spider's Bite, play the zero cost from Arsenal.
Yeah, it's definitely not great there. I
Yeah,
think
it's a little bit mid.
yeah, in Ranger it might help you. Like if you're playing mostly reds, it might help you play a one cost arrow after you've already loaded it. So I think that's decent, but I think it's a lot weaker than like Sasha Sandakai from the last set or Deep Blue from Tails. So
I think this is a good card that you always want to play it because if you're in Ninja, it'll always translate to one damage somewhere in the game, or it'll translate to an actual arrow firing in the Ranger class, or even if it does somewhere translate into a Spider's Bite, it's gonna be worth it. So you always will play this card if you have it. But just letting you know, it's gonna be difficult, and just make sure that you are in a deck that can play it.
yeah, and I think because it's hard to translate into value, I guess outside of potentially Ninja, you should be looking for spots where you can do it. And as soon as you can, I would just snap it off. Like you're not going to get some huge play out of this card. I think you just want to try and get your 1 point and then be pretty happy with that.
All right, let's just move on. Next card will be Fistcuffs. Fistcuffs? Fisticuffs?
I think it's Fisticuffs.
Fisticuffs. This is a arms piece. It just reads attack reaction, pay 2, destroy it. Target attack action gets +1.
I think that 2 for 1 damage is really expensive, but there are a lot of on hits in this set. So if you're making good on hits connect, I think it could be pretty good. Like in particular, if they exactly block something with a blood rot box, and you can give it +1, and then they get a blood rot box. That's kind of like 2 resources for 3 damage, which is at that point it's pretty good. So I think you want to be looking for on hits to pair with this, but outside of that, it's sort of pretty marginal.
Next card will be Fleetfoot Sandals. It's the leg piece. Just says you attack reaction, destroy it, and a target attack with 1 or less base power gets go again. How is this card good?
I don't think it's great. I guess you can give your blue stealth attacks go again, but it seems fairly mediocre. Like I think you'll play it as a free slot. Probably has the most text in Benji or one of the assassins, but I don't think it's great.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like I thought most of Benji's attacks will already have go again.
Yeah, a lot of them do. He has some finishers that come in for like 1 or 2 at blue or yellow, but I don't really think we'll talk about all the classes a little bit, but I don't think that's really where you want to be. So yeah,
Hmm.
this card's like pretty marginal, I think.
Then last card is the Silkengi. This card's really interesting. This is the most interesting card of the generic equipment slot. So this one reads instant destroy Silkengi. The next attack action card you play this turn has -1 power and costs 1 less to play.
Yeah, so right away this can reduce attacks to make it unblockable with Benji, which is sort of interesting. But you won't be getting the cost reduction out of that, so you are just kind of giving yourself like -1, um, which is not great unless the damage is going to be lethal, or like maybe it's like turn 0 and you're just chipping them for a bunch of damage that they can't block. That seems pretty good. But I think that even though this isn't going value, like you're trading a point of power for a point of resource, it's probably still going to be okay because if it enables you to play a card that you couldn't have played otherwise, I still think that's going to be worth it.
The card works really well with Spring Load.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spring Load is just a one cost generic attack action card, or just actually honestly any one cost attack action. I guess it'll work okay with.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can just come in and just have like a 0 for 4 with spring load. Seems okay. I think all of this is to say that the class equipment is much stronger than the generic equipment, and you'll play the generics if you have them, but I think that you're almost always going to be wanting to play the class equipment if you have the option to do so.
Before we move on, do you think these generic equipment is like in past sets, like in WTR or ARC? Actually, not ARC. Monarch, we had the generic equipment that was basically just a block, and they were pretty high picks. Honestly, like you would pick up almost all the iron rods pretty quickly because they're played in everything, and they just always generated a value. Do you think these equipments are gonna be like that, where you just want to pick up early if you're in a draft?
I think for the most part, I'm going to be picking these up a little bit later. I'm kind of hoping to be running class equipment over this. Notably, the class equipment doesn't seem to be available. Like, there's not really like chest pieces per se. So I think that the chest pieces will be decent picks. And I think fisticuffs is okay if you know that you're assassin or ranger with like the ailments on hit. But in general, I don't want to be spending high picks on these. I don't think I'd be hoping to get them pretty late.
That's fair. Okay, let's move on to the actual classes now.
Yeah, so I think for our format here, we're going to kind of go class by class and then talk a little bit about like what cards to look out for, give you a basic idea of some of the play style or like common lines we think that those heroes will have, and maybe mention anything if there's things that we think might look good but ultimately be a bit of a trap. We'll point those out too. Keep in mind that we haven't actually played the set, so this is very much our first impressions, and especially I think it's easier for us to imagine how like Katsu or Azalea plays because we've already played with those heroes, and a little bit harder when we get to like Riptide and honestly even Benji because Benji wasn't in a limited set.
Do you want to start us off?
Sure. So first off, we'll cover Ninja. I think that Ninja, as we mentioned, is going to be very aggressive because they have very few access to 3 blocks. I think in your sealed pool, if you're playing Ninja, you really want probably like 7 blue 0 costs at a minimum because you want to be able to turn on those Kodachis. They require a 0 cost in pitch to get go again, and you really want those to be blues. You can sometimes get away with like maybe you can get away with like six blues that cost 0 and like a couple that cost 1 or 2 and like a couple of yellows. Like maybe you can do that, but you really want to be pretty close to that seven blue 0 cost, or it's just not going to be a good time for you.
I think another thing would be if you are having to play yellow ninja cards, just make sure that they are 0 cost, so they turn into Kodachis pretty efficiently.
Yeah, turning your yellow into like 2 Kodachis is quite good because it's very hard to block that damage efficiently. So, and I think the final thing to look for is just the equipment. It's honestly all pretty powerful. So in the equipment slots for Ninja, there's first off Mask of Many Faces, which is a Blade Break 1, and you can spend 1 as an instant to destroy it, and the next card that you play gains the name of your choice. This will help you cheat on combo lines. I think this is going to be very good in both Katsu and Benji, maybe even more important in Benji because it will let you make use of some of those combo lines that I don't think you're going to be able to use very easily otherwise, and that can be pretty big value. I think you can do some big things with this card.
Yeah, I have nothing else to say about this. It's just I think you want it. Even just having a Blade Break 1, all of these equipments are pretty gross because of that.
Next up, we have Mask of Shifting Perspectives. This is an Assassin Ninja head. It also has Blade Break 1 and has an attack reaction where you destroy it. And whenever a dagger hits this turn, you may put a card from your hand onto the bottom of your deck. If you do, draw a card. So basically, it gives your daggers on hit the sink below effect. I think this is pretty strong too. The hand fixing is really good. I think in Ninja, Mask of Many Faces is probably going to be better so long as you have combo lines to capitalize off of. But I would play Mask of Shifting Perspectives if I didn't have one.
Yeah, I think honestly, Blade Break One is better in with these kinds of than this actual effect. But I think just the option of having both is what makes this card really good.
Yeah, I think that you will be blocking with this a decent amount of the time, but I could see if you're like in a spot where your opponent blocks out and you have like those, like sometimes you have like those kind of dud hands that don't really do much and you can't leverage your 4 card hand well. I think in those spots, if you can pop, like maybe as all blues, you can pop Mask of Shifting Perspectives to just kind of cycle and try to find something better. I think could be pretty big value.
Yeah, that is true. Also, it'll be interesting if you have the other equipments like an opt or something like that too. That might make some interesting play lines there.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah, because you can still activate the other equipment by spending a resource. You don't have to actually prevent a damage.
Yeah, that's very cool. Finally, we have Blade Cuff. This is an arm and the Assassin Ninja, and it blocks for 1 with Blade Break, and it has an action cost 2, destroy it, and your daggers get +1 this turn. Um, this is going to be really good in in Ninja, I think, because with the Kodachis, it's just like extra 2 damage. It's going to be mostly in like 2 blue hands where it is good, but I think that you're going to draw those and just being able to get extra value is pretty good. And if not, you can just block it for 1.
As you said, like same thing with the Mask of Shifting Perspectives. When you do draw like a blue heavy hand, this card's going to be really good, and to convert bad hands into like fairly decent ones is pretty. It's exactly where you want to be.
And I think like Assassin's going to be pretty happy to play this too, but it's a little bit harder to get the value out of it just because like the Spider's Bites already cost 2, and I guess you can activate this into 2 Spider's Bites for 6 resources total off of 2 blues, but then you're not getting to play any like cards that you want to pitch, which it's okay. Like I don't know how well it fits into the curve though. It just seems easier to use in Ninja, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is more powerful in Ninja, but still an option for Assassins.
Okay, let's move into the heroes. So Katsu, I think, is going to be go wide, focused on combo. You're going to use your Kodachis to create chain links and try to push a lot of breakpoints. I think that cards you want to be looking for are combo lines and especially starters. When you're laying out your sealed pool, I might lay out like here's like my surging line, here's my head jab line, here's my twin twisters line, and like see how that lines up. And because you can tutor for the combo cards using the Katsu ability, so long as you have 0 costs, um, I think that having the starters is always kind of the most important piece. And ideally, you're going to focus on like maybe 2-ish combo lines. And I think if you have like redundancy in those combo lines, that's probably a good sign you have a good Katsu pool. And I think in particular, the surging combo line with Descendant Gustwave and Bonds of Ancestry is just far and away the strongest combo line.
Yeah, that's the combo line you're really looking for. You just want like multiple Surging Strike, multiple Descendant Gust Waves, and hopefully you open the Bonds of Ancestry as your rare. Yeah, it really depends on yours. If you're playing sealed, it's really dependent on if you can open them together or not, and if you don't, it's mostly Descendant Gust Wave and Bonds of Ancestry is quite awkward to play without the combo. So
Yeah. So you'll want that redundancy. I do think you can also build Katsu just to be like Fi, where you're playing head jabs and leg tops. There's like a decent density of head jabs and leg tops in this set. So I think that is also going to be kind of an option in a way that you could build him and might be. I wouldn't be surprised if in sealed Katsu doing that is just pretty good because like it's like a similar setup to Uprising where you have like head jab and be like water as head jabs at common, so you have 2 common head jabs, and you also have hurl, which is a rare head jab that when you play it you can pay 1 and destroy a dagger, and that dagger deals 1. So like you're not going to want to do it at the start of the game, but maybe sometimes it's worth 4 points, and it's upside, so it's okay.
yeah, any upside is good upside.
Yeah, just like it can close out a game and or push them to have to block. I think it's decent. But yeah, I think because like set is set up with like leg taps and head jobs like that, you're gonna and you have like redundant copies. I think it might be pretty consistent, kind of like Fi.
Yeah, let's move on to Benji real quick first because I do want to compare those two. It'll be a little bit easier to talk about Ninja in general if we can compare.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. So I think an important question is if you're playing Benji, I think you want to be asking yourself why you're playing Benji instead of Katsu. The biggest thing here is Benji starts with 17 life, whereas Katsu starts at 20. And because you're not blocking, you're really going to be forced into racing with Benji. So I think that there are ways to get value, but you just want to be thinking about. Like I think Katsu is going to be like the more universal choice, and then maybe if you have the right pool, Benji might line up. What are your thoughts on Benji?
I actually think Benji would probably be your default in sealed at least.
Hmm.
Katsu is a combo line deck where if you have the combos, it's gonna be much more powerful to do the combo lines. But in sealed, you're just not guaranteed to get all the combo lines. So even if you're just doing like exactly what you were saying earlier with just like the head jabs, I feel like Benji is better at doing that because of his second line of text that says the first time an attack action you control hits, the next one gets +1. So it's gonna be in this format if you just have 0 for 3 like head jabs, it's going to be difficult to block out with one card. Um, and if something leaks through, then your next card gets +1, even your Kodachi. And it's gonna get more and more difficult to block out as the game goes on. Even if it's like a 0 for 3, they have so many go agains. And if you don't actually have very consistent combo lines or not that many combo cards that go well together, if you're playing just generic go again cards, I feel like Benji might be the one you want to do. Or like it's gonna be the easier one to to have a deck that's more consistent than having Katsu where he might just have a blank hero text, but he does get 3 more health.
Yeah. I guess it's like a matter of how long the average game goes in Outsiders because like the first 3 times you trigger Benji is kind of just like evening out with Katsu, and then after anything after that is like bonus value. So I think if the games are going fairly long, then it will be good. I'm not sure if it will be though if you're starting at 17 life and you're a deck full of 2 blocks. I think the games might go pretty fast.
But I don't know which heroes can actually kill you in 3 turns in this format.
Yeah,
Like if you are
maybe.
gonna, let's say like you have 1 3 block in hand as Benji, you're gonna live 3 turns. Like it's assassin's
That's true.
gonna assassin's gonna have a hard time doing 17 damage in 2 turns. Like it's just they're gonna have some troubles converting their whole hand into damage. And I think so is Ranger. Ranger's gonna have a hard time just doing more than let's say 10 damage if you give them a full hand. So
Yeah, yeah, that's reasonable. I do think that Benji is going to be worse in like the Ninja Mirror probably, but yeah, maybe into Assassin and Ranger. You're right. I could see the games going long enough for you to get value out of it. It'll be interesting to see which one's stronger. I think you're really going to want a lot of natural go again. I think you're wanting to build this deck like Fi. You're not going to rely on the combo much, although if you do have like I think be like water is going to be an important way to sometimes get the combo effects and also the mask of many faces. I think if you have like multiple of those and you have a lot of redundant pieces, you might be able to sneak in like a few combo cards, but I don't think it's the main thing that you're going to be doing. I think you're just going to be pushing like good efficient attacks. So your head jabs, your leg taps. I think if you are playing combo line, twin twisters and head jab look like the intended combo lines for Benji. Twin twisters can either just come in as a leg tap to trigger Benji, or if you have like a yellow twin twisters, it can come in for 2, and then your next attack action gets +1 if it hits. Um, and that combos nicely with the back heel kick that comes in. This is just a 0 cost, 3 power, 3 block that has combo, and it says that if Twin Twisters was the last attack on the combat chain, it gives any power gains are instead that much +1. So if you have like a yellow Twin Twisters into back heel kick, the Twin Twisters will deal 2, the back heel kick will get two from Benji, two from Twin Twisters, and come in for 7. So that'll be like a. You can also Kodachi, so that'll be like a 3 card 11, which is pretty powerful, honestly.
3 card 11s is very powerful in this format.
And I think that like Katsu's really not going to want this combo line because he's not as good at adding power to it as Benji is.
Yeah, and honestly, back heel kick's sweet because like even if you have like an attack reaction, or I guess there's only one attack reaction you can play with ninja. You can play it with that too, and it gets +1 from that one as well. So the more buffs you can give this one card after the combo line, the better this gets.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also worth noting that like even the blue is pretty good because if you do that same line and you come in with the blue for 5, like if your blue's a lava burst, that's pretty big game.
That is really big game.
I think the head jab line is also more of a Benji thing. They're very short. It's just head jab into a finisher that doesn't have go again. There's 2 of them. They both attack for 3, block for 3, cost 0. Recoil says if it combos, then the defending and it hits, the defending hero puts a card from their hand on top of their deck, which is really strong. I think blue is going to be the best color for this because if Benji's like notably if Benji hits and you're playing yellow recoil, it actually busts the power to 3 and then it's not unblockable and they'll probably just block it for 3. So I think you either want blue or you want the red one because the red one becomes a breakpoint of 4 if they let the first attack hit.
Honestly, the yellow one is fine too if the first one doesn't hit and then yellow is unblockable as well.
It's fine, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like you just want to play all of them anyways. It's just the red and the blue are better.
Yeah, I'd be careful about how many of these you're putting in your deck because they don't have go again naturally or at all actually. But yeah, I think you can play a few for sure.
Blocks for 3. It's fine.
And the other follow up is just 1-2 punch, and if it combos with head jab, it has on hit deal 2 damage. So again, like if the blue is 1 and it gets +1 from Benji, it's 2 unblockable, and then does +2 damage. Your blue's coming in for 4 unblockable, which is again pretty big game.
Yeah, Benji just has a lot of unblockable damage.
Absolutely. So I think Benji's going to be pretty solid, and I think that the biggest thing is I don't think you want to be playing too many of these 2 costs. Like you can be, or the 2 power attacks, like you can play a little of it, but I think that honestly, if you're just being on rate, playing like 3s and 4s and getting +1 out of Benji, that's like probably where you're going to want to be most of the time. And then maybe on like turn 0, you can chip them, or if you have, it's like sealed, you have some. You don't get to pick what you open, and you just have some like incidental unblockable damage. But I don't think it's like I think there is a trap where if you're like playing all 2 cost attacks, your deck's not going to be good.
Yeah, I feel like just this is Flesh and Blood is still about a game of being on rate, and if you're just being on rate, it doesn't matter what your hero does. Like your cards will be good, and when you get incidental advantages from your hero power, great. This isn't gonna be like constructed where you want Benji to be this like broken hero that just like you can't block any of my cards and I do like 20 damage. I feel like you want to be doing things very consistently and be like, oh, incidentally, this card can't be blocked, or incidentally, this card gets +1.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like looking for like the other thing that really kind of just cements this is like those combo cards with on hits. If you have the red ones, they just get pushed to a breakpoint of 4. And honestly, if your opponent's blocking 2 cards on your 1 card, you're really happy too. It's still very good. So in a lot of ways, like I think you're just going to want to play the red ones.
Yeah. You want to start moving on to Ranger? Or do you have other things to talk about?
Yeah, let's just say really quickly, I think that Short and Sharp and Deadly Duo they look like Benji cards, and you can play them. I don't think that they're as good as they look. Short and Sharp's the Assassin Ninja attack reaction that costs 1 and gives a dagger +3 or an attack action card with with power 2 or base power 2 or less +3. I think this is just okay. It's not really on rate. It needs a target. You do have your dagger as a target, which is like fine, but it's just like a 1 for 3 go again. It's fine, but it's not amazing. And I think Deadly Duo This is the 1 for 3 go again, and it says if this hits, the next attack action card with 2 or less base attack this combat chain gains +2. I think this card is like okay, and you can play it, but I think it is less good than it looks because if you don't have the 2 power, this is just a 1 for 3 go again. And even if you do have the 2 power, it's like you're playing a below rate card and then you're just kind of making it like on rate, if that makes sense. Like let's say you play this into a head jab and it's a red and it hits, which is like not even counting that they can just block it for 3. Like this is effectively doing 5 damage and the head jab is doing 2 damage. So you're doing like 2 cards for 7. But if they were just like if it was just leg tap head jab, they already do 7. So this is just like a leg tap that has to hit to get its value. And I don't think it's very
It's not that good.
It's not that good. Like it looks like a Benji card and it's okay. You can play it, but it's not amazing.
Honestly, probably maybe even like a constructed thing than a limited good card.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Okay, let's move on. We're already getting quite long.
Yeah.
Okay, so next class, let's talk about Ranger. I guess Ranger is your what's it called? Not your baby, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that works. Yeah, I do enjoy Ranger. I think Ranger looks pretty good in this set, honestly, in limited. You don't have Death Dealer, so I think a lot of what you're doing is going to be on rate. And I think that I kind of wonder if Assassin's going to be able to fatigue you if they have a lot of 3 blocks, especially in draft. But I think in sealed, Ranger is going to be pretty real. And I think in particular, like Azalea is going to be pretty hard to block out.
Yeah, it's just and another note, both Azalea and Riptide has quiver at the token slot, so you always get the quiver with them.
Yeah, that's right. You always have the quiver, and they both play Barbed Castaway. So yeah, so maybe we can jump right into things. In terms of equipment, I think all of the equipment again is pretty good. Wayfinder's Crest is just a blade break block 1, and when you defend with it, you can see the top card of target hero's deck, so has synergy with Azalea's hero ability, which is pretty nice, and it's just Iron Rot helmet. Mask of Malicious Manifestations is an assassin ranger headpiece. It has Blade Break 1 as well, and it has an action cost 1 resource. Put a card from your hand or arsenal onto the bottom of your deck, destroy it, and reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal an attack action card. Put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Go again. I think this ability is really strong. Just being able to turn, like if you have like a bad blue in arsenal or your arsenal's clogged, and being able to turn that into another card, into specifically an attack, is really good.
You can... So this costs 1 resource, turns your arsenal into a card in hand.
Yeah, specifically an attack action card.
Okay. That makes sense. Sorry, I was trying to conceptualize what this card does. It's not really on rate though, is it? It's like you turn your arsenal into a card in hand, but it does cost 1 resource.
Yeah, so you're not getting value out of this, but I think that the hand fixing is good. And I think if you ever get to like, I'm thinking like, I don't know, like maybe you get like a ponder token and you're arsenaling, like you're playing Riptide and you arsenal like some blue arrow that's not very good and you don't really want to be playing out. You can just spend a resource and turn it into like a fraction of a card, which I think is pretty good.
I don't know. Maybe if it's me, I'm just gonna use this as a 1 block more often than not.
I think I agree that it's like mostly going to be used as a 1 block. I just think that especially in limited, Ranger can sometimes have this problem of your arsenal getting clogged and just being able, or like not having attacks and just having your 1 block equipment also just potentially get you out of that situation where where your turn just bricks is pretty good.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next card, Toxic Tips. This card reads, action, pay 1, destroy it. Next attack action card you play gains when this hero hits. Create one of the 3 ailments.
Yeah, one of the 3 ailments. Yeah, I think so.
And it also has Blade Break for 1.
Yeah, card's really good, especially in Azalea where you can give stuff dominate.
Yeah.
I think you're going to make Blood Rot most of the time, right?
Yeah, I think so. The one time you probably make like a frailty token or something against ninja is like when you need it when you're at low life and you can turn off their kodachis. But most of the time, you just want to do 2 damage to your opponent.
And I think in general, for all the ailments, the blood rots are the best. Frailty's actually probably the second best because it's relevant against ninjas and relevant against the rangers and actually also the assassins, the spider bites.
Probably the worst against assassin, but even
Yeah,
still, like it makes their turn awkward.
yeah. And then inertia is, I think, honestly more of a constructed thing. Like it just tells people to play out their arsenal, and maybe because of the lack of go again, that's going to be good. But I'm not super convinced.
Yeah, I feel like when you know it's gonna be good, it will be good.
Yeah,
But a lot of the times, I think just doing 2 damage is the safest thing because you just don't know what's in your opponent's hand, and you don't know. Like, I guess if you can look at your opponent's hand and then see, like, oh, I can force them to play out their hand in a very awkward way, it'll be good. But then that's not the case. You don't get to look at your opponent's hand. You don't know exactly how their hand is structured. So you're always going to be in a spot where you make this token and then they just naturally play out their whole hand and then you get no value, which is the worst case scenario.
so before we go on to Azalea, I think just one thing to keep in mind is that if you're playing Rangers, you do need to close out the game. And to do that, you're going to need arrows and you need to have enough of them to just be able to threaten damage. I guess you do have like some attacks like Death Touch and Virulent Touch. So if you have like other attack actions, maybe you can get away with it a little bit. But I think in general, you're going to want like 13 arrows ish, at least, and like of those mostly red and yellow. If you're playing like 5 red arrows and like the rest are blue, I just don't think you're going to be able to close games. So if you're looking at your ranger pool, just look at your arrow count first. And I think that if you just don't have the arrow count, you're not going to be able to play the class. Similarly to how like if you don't have the 0 cost blues for ninja, you're not going to want to be playing ninja.
Yeah, those are all good numbers to know. Let's just move on right into the hero. Actually, before we move on to the hero, Bard Cast Away. It is an instant. So if you do go second, just make sure that you just make sure you remember that you can pay 1 resource and put an arrow from your hand face up into your arsenal and then draw up as well.
You also can flip the attack face down, an arrow that's face down, face up, and get an aim counter on it. And I think most of the cards that care about aim counters in this set are +1 power, so that's like decently strong. If you can just like spend an extra resource to get an extra power when it works out, it's pretty okay. Okay, so for Azalea, I think she's really going to be doing kind of what she's been known for, which is just go tall with dominate. Sometimes it is harder to get dominate in draft because you don't necessarily have access to information on top of your deck. But there are a few ways to do that, and you're going to want to look for those ways. So, in particular, I think Spire Sniping is quite good. It's the arrow that, when it goes into your arsenal or is flipped face up, you can look at the top 2 cards and rearrange them in any order. This isn't opt, so you can't put it on the bottom, but you do get a look at 2 cards and make an informed choice about whether or not you want to be using Azalea's hero ability. Other cards that give you information is Ravenous Rabble. You just get to see the top card, which lets you know if you want to Azalea into it or not. And it's also just a red go again that helps you empty your hand, so it's quite good. And then there's also a pump, Scout the Periphery. It's a 0 cost. Look at the top card of target hero's deck. The next action card you play from Arsenal this turn gains +3 and has go again and block 2. I think that card's also going to be kind of premium in Azalea just so that you can dominate a little more consistently. Other than that, I think all the laces and all the arrows that give ailments are really good. Widowmaker, well, it's a very weak constructed card because equipment turns off. Like if they block with equipment, it doesn't get the +3. Like it's a 1 for 4 that gets +3 if it's defended by fewer than 2 cards, but it counts equipment towards it. So in constructed, this is pretty terrible, but in draft, I think it's okay. There's not that much equipment that actually blocks.
Yeah, and they're all class equipments with Blade Break. Oh,
Yeah,
actually, let me. Yeah, okay. I just double checked if any of the generic equipment has a 0 block or not. All the generic equipment in the set does not have a block value, so you cannot just randomly put them into the what's it called? The blocking zone.
Yeah, the card has to have a printed block value, even if that block value is 0, in order for you to be able to block with it at all. So I think Widowmaker is going to be pretty good in Ranger, just in general. So yeah, that's Azalea. I think you're going to want like 8 pumps, good red arrows, and just go tall dominate. I think you want to be thinking about whether or not you want blues in your deck. The more access to the top of your deck you have, or the more that, like, if your deck is all cards you can play from Arsenal, then you can, like, either, by that I mean either arrows or cards with go again, so that you can clear it and load an arrow. Then you can just kind of like always end on an Arsenal and blind Azalea every turn for free, relatively. Like, so long, again, like defense reactions are going to screw this up. So your deck has to be built in a way to do it. But basically, like, you can only really use a blue if you load an arrow, Azalea, get a 1-cost arrow, and put an aim counter on it. And I think that some decks are going to want to do that, but most Azalea decks are just going to be red and yellow. So you really want to be thinking about, like, do you actually need blues in your deck? And I think more often than not, the answer is going to be no.
Yeah, there's not that much cards that benefit off aim counters, right? It's just like +1 power most of the time.
Yeah, it's mostly +1. There's quite a few, like, a lot of the arrows do get +1 power from it, so I think it is okay, but yeah, I think you're mostly going to want to be red and yellows unless you really have like payoffs and information about the top of your deck.
Yeah, that's fair. Just also, you can just think of it as like a modal. All these arrows are modal cards when they come off the top, because you don't have to pay the one, but if you do, it gets a +1 kind of thing. So it is honestly just like a good option.
Maybe before we move on to Riptide, I think cards you're going to want to avoid is, I don't think you want too many traps in your decks. The yellow one is okay because you can pitch it. The red ones are less good, but you can probably like maybe sideboard them in when they're relevant. Um, but you can kind of clog up your deck if you have too many D-Reacts. And then the other card you're not going to want, I think, is Seek Horizon. This is a reprint, and it's a 4 for 0. And as an additional cost, you can put a card from your hand on top of your deck. And if you do, it gets go again. Yes, this works with Azalea and can give something with Dominate. The thing is that you're spending an entire card to give your arrow Dominate. And that's just not usually worth it. Like, it's a play that you can make, but it's very below rate, and I don't think it's where you want to be, even though it looks like an Azalea thing to be doing. So I think you don't want this card in your deck ideally. Like, the red one's okay, but it's not a great card.
I have a feeling Seek Horizon fits better in Ninja, where they just want a 0 for 4 than in Ranger, where you don't want to pay the additional cost to play this card.
Yeah, it's really expensive, and unless it's winning you the game, it's or I guess it's like turn 0, it's not very good.
Yeah. Let's move on to Riptide. Riptide is the new hero of the set. We'll explain it very, very quickly. Riptide it's a 19 health hero, and whenever you play a card from hand, you put a card from your hand face down into your arsenal, and then whenever you play a trap, your opponent takes 1 damage.
I think Riptide is also going to be able to function almost entirely off of reds. If you have red go agains, you're going to be able to load arrows without even activating your barbed castaway. And then even if you want to get the aim counter and it's a 1-cost arrow, that's still only 2 resources. So I don't think you're really ever going to need blues in Riptide. And I think you can either build more control with 3 blocks and just play like efficient 1 to 3 card hands. I think you can also just go like kind of a red line all go again attack kind of deck, and I think that that's going to work okay as well in Riptide. I think either one is okay.
Is Riptide one of those decks where you probably want just generic attacks that you can play from hand? Or do you think it wants to be like arrow focused?
I think you probably want the arrows because the arrows are just good cards. Like, if you load, like, let's say that you, like, I think what you can do is Ravenous Rabble, put a infecting shot into your arsenal, flip up the infecting shot off a yellow, and then fire it for 6, and that's just like a really solid turn. So I think you can just play these like 3-card 10s and 2-card 6s with an on hit and chip people with traps. Like, I think that's what he's trying to do. I think he's the best home for Death Touch and Virulent Touch, which are the assassin and Ranger cards that can be played only from Arsenal. It's just really easy to reload these with Riptide, and if you're like, yeah, Rabble into Death Touch, it's really strong turn.
Hmm. Well, but that also means you do need some generics in your deck. So I guess you need like a column A, column B type with this deck.
Yeah, in my mind, I kind of think that Riptide is gonna be like Dromai. I think you want a bunch of red go agains so that you can empty your hand and leverage the reload. I think you're gonna want your deck to be almost entirely red, and I think that's how you're gonna overcome fatigue because unlike Azalea, you don't really have dominate. So you get some chip damage from some of your traps, and then other than that, like you need a way to close out the game. And I think the way you might do that is just by having a deck full of reds and like presenting these like arrows and death touches that come in for 6 and demand 2 cards, and just sort of go that way and take advantage of Ranger's 3 blocks between the arrows and the traps. So I think you're just going to have like all your cards worth 3, and that will, even though you don't have a weapon, I think you might outvalue them. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about Riptide as well, specifically in sealed, as like he's not gonna be very good at converting multiple arrow hands either, right? If you can't activate his first ability to by playing a card in hand, your turn you just need to block, right? Like there's no other way you can to make your turn function.
Yeah, I think you really want the red go agains, and so I think like Dromai, I kind of suspect Riptide is going to be hard to come together. I think a good Riptide deck will probably be good, but I think you're going to want a lot of reds and a bunch of go agains and a bunch of block threes and traps. So it's like very specific, and I think that honestly, even in draft, I think it might be one of the hardest decks to come together.
Yeah, I think I might agree with that. So yeah, if you can build it together in sealed, I want to take a look at what a sealed Riptide deck would look like because I can't really conceptualize what a good sealed Riptide deck would look like.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be strong reds, go agains, traps, but that's not going to be your average pool.
It's gonna be hard to open all of those.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about Riptide before we move on?
I think that you're as Ranger, you're going to be Azalea majority of the time because like most of the pumps and arrows are also good. Like they're good in both heroes, and I think unless you just like have a whole bunch of traps and like red go agains, like you need a reason to be Riptide. You really need the right pool, and I think Azalea is just going to be like a little more flexible. So I think you should be defaulting to Azalea most of the time, but you can definitely try out Riptide if you have a pool that looks conducive to it. I kind of worry about getting fatigued by particularly Assassin. They have a whole bunch of 3 blocks. They actually have a weapon. You you don't you don't have a way to go above like 3 cards per turn. Like all of you, like your arrows attack for like 5 or 6 with off of 2 cards, and your pumps give +3. So like if they have all 3 blocks, they might just fatigue you and chip you out with weapons. I don't know. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is. It's like the ranger the ranger problem of not having a weapon. It was prevalent in Arc, and honestly, sometimes during hero reveal, you look at Azalea and Arc, and you're like, give me 1 second, let me look at all of my pool. Oh wait, if I just added like 8 more 3 blocks and take out all of my 2 blocks, no matter how good they are, I don't know if I can lose this game anymore.
Yeah, Ranger does have to worry about fatigue, and
Is there a like a arrow that goes back to the deck in this set?
I don't think so. Let me check very quickly here. I feel like I would have noticed if there was.
Yeah, doesn't look like there's any attacks that go back into the deck. So I feel like probably my default when I go into this set will be to try and deck out Azalea and Riptide and then go from there.
Yeah. I think Azalea does have some tools just because of the dominate, and you have some card selection, like some ability to manipulate your deck either through pitch stacking or like looking at the top card. So I think Azalea is going to be the harder deck to fatigue for sure, especially without access to good D reacts. But I think that Riptide is like potentially pretty vulnerable to it if you have a deck full of 3 blocks and weapons. So
Yeah,
assassins.
I'm gonna hope I open 3 peace of mines and then rest in peace, Azalea. Okay. Are we good to move on?
Yeah, I think so. Let's go to assassin.
Okay, so assassin, we have 2 heroes. We have Arachne and Azuri. These are both. This is the only class with 2 brand new heroes we haven't played with. Unlike Ninja and Ranger, I feel like Azuri and Arachne plays significantly differently from each other, and they both want very different cards. So I want to start talking about Arachne first. So Arachne is a 19 health hero that just reads your first attack action with stealth each turn has go again. To I'm just gonna get straight to the point. I don't think Arachne is as good as Azuri in exactly sealed, but how Arachne functions, you just want the 0 cost for 3. That's a stealth card, and you want as many as you can get your hands on. So if it was like a draft, I feel like this hero is gonna be very insane, as you can just always convert 0 for 3s into 6 points of damage and then block for 6 every turn to basically create 12 points of value every turn. But in sealed, if you don't have like a high density of 0 for 3s, you probably want you probably need at least 12 in your deck for it to be decent. Like 0 for 3 stealth. The blue and the yellows are not good in this deck. It's very hard to convert yellow stealth cards in this deck into actual, how would I say it? Into actual value
Yeah,
to
I think
points.
so. They're just really easy to block. Like it's just kind of like how like you can play them, but I think that because only the first like it's not like Phi where you can just keep going again. Only the first attack with stealth gets go again. So if you're just going like yellow for two, like it's pretty mopey.
Yeah, it's quite bad. Even with an on hit, it's quite bad.
Yeah.
That's all Arachne does. And unlike ninjas, where they can turn like a yellow into 2 Kodachis, a yellow turns into a single spider's bite, which only does 1 damage. And it does have an on hit, but from my experience playing like constructed Arachne, the on hit on spider's bite is less relevant than people think. It is good when it is good when it becomes relevant, but it is less good than what people think.
I was gonna say I think that you want to have some I think one cost cards are gonna be really good in Arachne because they just make a nice cost curve with a you can go like Spider's Bite, 0 for 3 go again, and then play like a one cost. Like a Death Touch is probably the best one. You can even play the generic where it's a 2 power, but if your hand's empty, it gets +3. So it's like a 1 for 5. I think you can play that as well.
Yeah, spring load is good.
Yeah. I think that's like the main way you want to be using the daggers. And when you can do that, I think it'll be strong. But I agree that that might be more more common in draft, easier to accomplish in draft.
Yeah, Arachne is one of those it's like a column. It's really funny as Arachne is is a deck where you probably want all of A, and Uzuri is a type of deck that wants column A, column B, and in sealed, I feel like both is gonna be somewhat difficult to do. And when you have the pool to do it, so when you have like a when you open a bunch of like probably like 8 or 9 0 cost 3 power stealth cards, you want to be an Arachne. And I'll go into Azuri next. So Azuri's a 20 health hero, which she gets 1 more health, and she has a attack reaction where she gets to turn a stealth card into any attack in your hand that costs 2 or less. I feel like Azuri is a column A plus column B type of card, where column A is going to be any and all stealth cards, and column B is going to be a 2 cost, what's it called? A 2 cost attack action card.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
For Azuri to function, you do need the 2 costs. It's We do have a lot of like 0 cost stealth cards in the set, but you need to have red 2 cost attacks for Azuri's hero ability to be good and to be relevant. And if you don't have the 2 cost, it becomes like Arachne, where now you don't. like Arachne needed the 0 cost for 3s, Azuri needs the 2 costs for 6s. And if you don't have these cards, your deck's gonna be very underwhelming. Like attacking once for 3 on your turn is not gonna do anything.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think the other card that's going to fit and play really nicely in, I think, actually both Uzuri and Arachne is the spikes, because they are that one cost, and in particular like spike with blood rot is really really good. But I think that just like having this mind game of, I have this extra card in hand and they're expecting it to be like maybe like you Azuri in an attack, but you can actually just arsenal a spike instead. Or in the case of Arachne, you have like your stealth card with go again, and maybe they like put a 3 block in front of it, or maybe they're expecting the next card. But if you just spike it, and especially if it's like a blood rot, that's like a 1 for 5, and it's really really good value. I think frailty is going to be very high value as well. So I think any of the spikes, like especially if you can combine them with the on hits from the stealth attacks, is going to be pretty like your other way. Like if you don't have the 1 cost attacks for Arachne or the 2 cost attacks for Azuri, I think the spikes can be a way to kind of supplement it.
Yeah, but even then, like just the spikes are, as you said, they're just 1 for 5s. That's like has a condition to play them. So, or that's only spike with blood rod. Actually, the spike with inertia is just a 1 for 3. It's just not on rate. Like it's a conditional 1 for 3 is not really where you want to be in Flesh and Blood. Really depends on how good your on hit is, but
Yeah, I think in my head that I think these are decent, just because it is hard to go above rate, and it's like, yeah, it's a 1 for 3, but it works with, like, if, because you can also swing your spider's bite. This is essentially like you're pitching like a blue in this to do like 4 plus push on hits, which I think is okay. Like it's not great, but I think that because it is hard to go above rate in this set, I think it's going to be good enough.
yeah, I think that's what you have to do in this set. But I'm still a little worried that this isn't gonna get you over the top of like Benji. You know, Benji's all of its attacks gonna be like a 0 for 3 go again, and then it gets +1 if you can't block him out. And all of their cards are just gonna be a little bit more efficient than you are, and doing damage and like making cards awkward to block. And I feel like Assassin's best strength here would be like it has a weapon and all their attacks block for 3, or almost all their cards block for 3. So like it's easier to get to a point where you can fatigue Ranger out. Currently, I don't know how you beat Katsu or Benji. I'm actually not too sure.
I think that if you have a good density of 3 blocks, you're probably okay. The fact that a lot of your stuff has on hits, and like the ninjas really don't block very well, I think that you're gonna kind of just be able to play like that slow attrition style, where you can like do a combination of blocking for 3 and just efficient attacks. And I think it's gonna be, I don't know how strong it is, but I definitely think that that is like the play style that you're aiming for, and I think it might line up, because I think a lot of what Benji's doing is like head jabs.
I don't know. It's just that I am hoping that Assassin will be playable in sealed, but from what I can see, I feel like this might be the weakest of the 3 classes, at least for sealed. In draft, I think it's a completely different story, where Assassins is one of those decks where you can put together like 5 or 6 2 costs red attacks and a bunch of 3 block stealth cards in Azuri, or in Arachne, you can just like pick up all the 0 cost for 3 stealth cards and have like 15 0 for 3s that blocks for 3 as well, which is just like a very powerful thing you can do in draft. But in sealed, where you're gonna be limited to the number of exactly the type of cards you need, you're gonna have this very awkward deck of like, I need to play yellow infects, I need to play yellow isolates, where
Yeah.
not all the stealth cards have on hits, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think
Like playing red sedate is not good.
yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think that maybe stronger in draft. So, anything else you want to talk about Assassin before we kind of give final thoughts on the format?
Yeah, so one last thing I want to talk about is the Nurse Scalpel, Orbital Class, and Scale Peeler. These are all mythic daggers from 4 Assassins. These cards are cool for constructed. I don't know if they're playable in limited. Spider's Bite is going to be the best one because everyone has to play attack actions. The other three, they're going to be so situational, you probably just want 2 Spider's Bite, even if you open it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that especially because almost all the 3 blocks are attack actions,
Yes.
then like people are going to be wanting to defend with their attack reactions. I think like other key cards that Assassin does have that are just going to be generically good are like our Hurl, the head jab that you can sack a dagger to deal 1, or Bleed Out is also okay. It's the 2 for 4 go again, and it costs X less resources, where X is the number is the total damage that you've dealt with daggers as combat chain. Maybe a little bit better in Ninja, but I think still okay in Assassin. Like you can pitch a blue, come in for 1, come in for 4, and then play a 0 cost or something.
Yeah. I think these are, Hurl and Bleed Out, they're both rares. It's going to be hard
Yeah.
to get multiple, but they're good cards.
Okay, so final thoughts on the format. For sealed, what do you think? Do you think it's I know that you mentioned you don't think Assassin's going to come together that much between Ranger and Ninja. Do you think they're both going to be about equal? One's going to be more common than the other. What do you think is going to be strong and sealed?
In Sealed, I just think I want to be Ninja. That's my take, at least for if I were to like wanting to play to win, I'll be playing Ninja. For pre-release, I'm actually only signed up for 1 pre-release so far. All the other ones sold out before I got the chance to sign up for it.
Yeah.
But I think I want to try Assassin. I've been liking the Assassin class and how it plays and constructed a lot, and it's probably my favorite class so far. So I'm definitely gonna try Assassins. But I think if I were to like help a new player out, I'll be like, just slam Ninja, go again cards together, and make your opponent have it.
Yeah. I think I kind of agree with that. I think that the head jabs and like just it's the set is really a lot like Outsiders, where you have multiple like you definitely have multiple head jabs, the same density of them, and even the leg taps. Like you have twin twisters, then you have like a bunch of these 1 for 3s with like some on hits that can translate to a point of value. And I think that just doing that, especially the 1 for 3s are going to be better in Benji, but I think just doing that is going to be like pretty consistent and pretty good. Maybe like the biggest difference compared to Fi is I think you can play more leg taps because like if you miss the Kadachis only cost 1 and they're so good at filling in damage that like if you have 2 leg taps and you only Kadachi once, like it doesn't really matter if that was a head jab or a leg tap, because either way it's presenting 4 damage. It's just one of them is attack for 4 and the other one's an attack for 3 and then a Kadachi. So I think you can play like a few more of these leg taps in your deck.
Yeah, the biggest difference between Fi is Fi had Emberblade, which was cost 2, but Kodachi that cost 1 is much easier to fit into your curve at any point in the game.
Yeah, I think all the classes are going to be pretty good, and I think a lot of it is going to come down to kind of what your pool supports, because you kind of need like specific things for every class to work. And I think the sealed pools are going to be maybe a little bit on the weak side. But yeah, I think for me as well, like Ninja is going to be most consistent, then probably Azalea, and then I think Assassins are probably next, and like Riptide is probably the hardest to come together, I think.
Yeah, I feel like for Riptide you need a lot of damage in your deck, and it's just hard to open that many reds. You're gonna end up with a pool of like on average a third red, a third yellow, a third blue. And I feel like the best heroes that can really take advantage of that might be Ninja.
I agree with all of that. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much going to wrap up our episode. I hope this helps you for your sealed pre-release. Let us know in the comments down below if we missed anything, or just let us know how your sealed pre-releases go. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Certain cards that impressed you, play patterns that you like, classes that you like. Any of that would be awesome to hear about. I'm pretty excited to be going to a couple sealed pre-releases, although I am also I'm signed up for 2 of them. So A little
Oh,
bit limited in how many pre-releases you can sign up for.
did all the other ones sell out?
Yeah, all the other ones sold out.
Man, it's so rough that all of them sold out. At least here in Vancouver. It's honestly it's this game is pretty popular here now.
Yeah, I kind of hope that we just go to like more of a Magic pre-release system where rather than like so tightly allocating pre-releases, we can just like I wish stores could just run multiple pre-releases. And that way you don't have this problem. Like it's just really awkward that like people want to play and there's only 16 slots in the kit. And that's like all the pre-release that you can have. I wish that like stores could just have like more product and just run multiple pre-releases, and if people want to play a bunch of them, they get to play a bunch of them. I don't really see the reason to like
Oh, to cap it essentially.
yeah, to like essentially cap it to like 16 per kit, and then the store has to order multiple, but they might not want to because they don't know how much turnout they're going to get. Like it's just a
Yeah,
little bit weird.
not even just that. Like some of the stores just can't get multiple of them.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas I think if you just had like I don't know, just like make the kit come with like some extra product, and then it can be like extra pricing or something if nothing else.
Yeah, that is true.
And then you
Or
can support more players.
or like the Pokemon and Magic style where they just like the pre-release kit is just the six packs and like a promo in it instead of like first place getting a promo kind of thing. Because I'm okay
Yeah.
with like not having a super special promo for the pre-release.
Honestly, I think that would be fine too. Or even if they just want to give like just every pre-release kit comes with like your two tokens, like which is what they're doing anyways. Like just make it into kits. I think that just like finding a way so that if people want to play a bunch of pre-releases, they can is I think it's only positive. I don't see any downside to it. So I hope that's something that they look at
For the next set in
for
seven
the next
months.
set. Yeah.
No,
All right.
I was just looking at the pre-release kit. It comes with two cold foil Azuris.
It does. Yeah, I think that will be for probably like winner and raffle is my
Yeah.
guess. I don't
I
know.
think it's one for the winner, one for raffle. Yeah.
Or maybe they're both raffled. I don't know. One of the two.
Depends on, I guess, the store. Oh no, I think one says one for the winner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right. That's going to wrap it up. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. You can reach out to me on Twitter at YukiLeeBender or J at UedaJ, also on Twitter. You can also email us directly at onthebauble@gmail.com. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening and good luck. Have fun at your pre release. I hope that you open some nice cold foils or some sweet cards that you're excited about.